Welcome back to the show that you probably didn't know existed because my first video on it got a copyright strike by Sony Music Entertainment Japan as usual, and it's still not back up, but that doesn't mean I cannot continue with the series. And since I'm a little behind schedule, this video will be covering a bundle of episodes. Welcome everyone, it's me Gamerturk and this is Fate Grand Opinions featuring Absolute Demonic Front Babylonia episodes 2 to 4 of Fate Grand Order. Now, if you're curious about my coverage of the first episode, it is available on my Facebook page as a backup until it is restored here on YouTube sometime this week, hopefully, wink wink YouTube. But I already took enough of a break from this series, being scared of Sony Music Entertainment Japan's blatant and constant DMCA abuse, that I do need to continue covering a series I am enjoying so much regardless. Just like my Explained series, timestamps to individual points will be in the description as well as the pinned comment, so you can skip to certain sections of the video if something interests you more, but keep in mind Fate Grand Opinions as stated in the title. This is not explained, I won't share in-depth knowledge, Fate series is just too big of a rabbit hole for me, so this is more of a review of individual episodes, what I loved when watching, what stood in my mind, and this doesn't happen often in FGO because it's so wonderful in general, but I'll also share what I don't enjoy if there's anything to mention on that aspect. But I want to start with this, with its episode 0 and episode 1 as well as the episodes I am covering today 2 to 4, have set up such a high bar for me that I am entering each episode of Fate Grand Order thinking, wow, the last episode was so great, I wonder how can they top it off this week, and they do manage to top it off each week without a fault. That's a stark contrast to the bar set by Alicization Anime for me that I go into with the mindset, I hope they don't create more plot holes by adding more anime original scenes again. Which, not surprisingly, Ono's leadership with Alicization Anime manages to top it off almost every single week as well. But yeah, this is about Fate Grand Order, so let's leave Alicization to the side. Let's head back to our focus. Naturally, 3-episode bundle, I will skip a lot of stuff, but when Enkidu was talking about the Demonic Front, did you see the Leonidas cameo, eh? Yeah, very observant I am. The CGI aside, I just love how dynamic each scene is. A big part of why I love Fate Grand Order are the characters themselves, but goddamn the animation just draws me in, even in the most mundane scene. Just look at this shot, from the Absolute Demonic Front all the way back to Fujimaru and Co. They do it a bunch of times throughout the entire series, these kinds of panning shots, but it just never gets old. I just love it when things are constantly moving during exposition heavy scenes. I honestly much rather prefer when I'm provided some creative shot that highlights the scale of everything instead of just 4 people talking back to back for 10 minutes in shot reverse shot. Like, no matter how much I don't want to draw comparisons, in Alicization they have constant still shots over exposition and show a nice background picture for a dozen seconds, then 50 seconds shot reverse shot, rinse and repeat. Here they are actually talking about the battle and actually showcase the battle and how small these individual characters are in comparison. That's just great in my opinion. And then Merlin and Anna join up to face Enkidu, which brings me to my next point. No, it's not about the glorious combat, it's the personality of individual characters. These are all legendary characters from history and mythology, and that speaks volumes to their presence in our reality. And Fate Grand Order, or Fate in general, not specifically Grand Order, always does an incredible job at making sure these larger than life figures dominate the entire scenes completely, but they somehow don't overshadow each other. They always blend in perfectly into an incredible mix. You can feel Merlin is plotting something that will result in a major issue. You can feel Enkidu is uneasy but still trying to instill calmness and confidence in Fujimaru and Mashu to hopefully not slip them up from his grasp. And even what people may call a comic relief side character, which it isn't in my opinion, Fo has a commanding presence due to its past with Merlin that I'm not gonna go into because this is not an explained video. A similar example would be Shinon vs Gabriel fight in Alicization War of Underworld episode 3 this week, where Shinon's horror and Gabe's focus dominates their short fight scene. SAO characters are just as charming as Fate characters, but sadly the anime rarely focuses on their characters just as much in general, while Fate completely banks on it and commits to it 100% of the time, and that's what makes it so great. And let's be real, we have only met half the feisty personalities right now. Ishtar didn't get a proper deban, Eresh is nowhere to be seen, Quetzal has yet to arrive, etc. So I genuinely feel giddy inside knowing how much more exciting characters are gonna show up in the near future. Glossing over the fight scene, because every single fight scene in Fate is just such an amazing spectacle, even the shitpost ones like the Jaguarman stuff in episode 4, so I would be beating a, well, not a dead horse. With all that praise involved, it's more of a holy horse. With Merlin's trick, they managed to get out, but a lovely detail is that the anime even makes it clear when Merlin sets up his trick at the very beginning of the conversation. I love those kinds of details. You will catch on to it if you're watching carefully from the get-go, if you're familiar with the characters of Fate. It's not quote-unquote being predictable per se, since you have no clue what Merlin initiates when he uses his staff, but knowing Merlin, you full well know he has a trick up his sleeve when he pushes Anna into the fight at that point. But the scene right after wins the episode for me. How grandiose of an introduction Merlin has planned for himself to taint the views of Fujimaru and Mashu, how kind Mashu is to instantly thank him for his statement, and then how Fu just cuts off Fujimaru to attack Merlin, and FGO just doesn't shy away from making everyone look as expressive as possible. I just love this specific screenshot right here. Just look at it. It tells you everything you need to know about the scene, despite looking so absurd. For those who have not realized, Fu does have a past with Merlin, yes, but that's an entirely different story that I do not have a full grasp on either, but I don't think not knowing the exact details harms the story in any way, since it's not relevant plot point for Babylonia, etc. I also love the Chaldea scenes in the background. It's very rarely shown, but just look at Da Vinci gradually losing it as Merlin keeps speaking about being an amazing caster and all. Moving on to episode 3, the fight against Gilgamesh, and well, I do love all of these fights, they just all look amazing. I just always get a chuckle when we reach those points that are obviously there for the sake of gameplay and don't translate as well into an actual narrative for an animated medium. Obviously the fight against Gilgamesh is here, so you can have a nice early chapter boss in the game. For the King of Kings, there are definitely better ways to learn about your guests. And things then get even funnier when Ishtar arrives with the typical Fate fashion of, how to put this? I'm gonna kill you. Oh wait, I just realized something. I'm not gonna kill you, I'm just gonna head off now without saying absolutely anything. But goddamn, all of the fights are so great that makes me want to not even complain about a single thing. But yeah, not much else to say about episode 3 otherwise. It was a very nice calm episode in general to get to know more about the characters and our side servants that are involved in the story. Some very cute moments. The animation is never stale during dialogue scenes either, that I feel like I keep repeating every single time. Gorgon is looking a whole lot more threatening than her servant image back in FGO, so that's very nice. But episode 4 is where we start getting hints of the bigger picture. It starts off with a flashback of the London Singularity, the fall of various servants including Mordred during the speech of the King of the Mages, Solomon. Really reminds you that FGO has much more of a grander scale than the single history-defining event we are living in Babylonia. And it's also the moment we start focusing more on Fujimaru Ritsuka and Mashu, which I absolutely love. Remember, they have been through 6 different singularities at this point, all as epic and troublesome as this one. Although the exact trouble and the rough nature of Babylonia has not yet surfaced, they have been through a lot of shit. I don't wanna say it's easy for Mashu just because she's a servant and puts her ultimate trust into Fujimaru. She does have it rough as well, living through 6 different hells. But Fujimaru is the one who is mainly shouldering all the pain as the active responsible person for all the decisions that were made during the process. And despite Babylonia anime being an isolated adventure, how the characters have been shaped coming into this is not irrelevant either, and Babylonia anime is, I feel like it's doing an amazing job portraying the weight of all the decisions we didn't get to see, or some people even don't know about. And once again, I will go back to the animation. It's so expressive. I know I bring it up a lot, but if you followed me in the past 2 years with Alternative GGO and then Alicization Explained, you know I reiterate things that are really important in my opinion. How expressive these characters are with their emotions during animation, the more impactful those emotions are. I can't exactly nail what it is they're doing so right because it's really good, but the emotions of the characters are always on display. Their body language, the way they move, their eyes, it is much more expressive than any other anime. And probably Mashu's hair, they make sure her hair is always moving naturally rather than remaining static. It's probably that. But jokes aside, Fujimaru's pain and Mashu's hope and trust constantly balancing each other out is just beautiful to watch. Whether it is the beginning of the episode where Mashu manages to ease Ritsuka's worries, or at the end of the episode where it all comes back to him again. And that's what makes FGO so special for me. Whether it's the actual comedic bits or happy moments, sad moments, painful moments, they all give me a warm smile to keep rooting for these characters. It's very much similar to how I feel for SAO when I read the light novels. It's why I'm always very critical towards the Alicization anime. These genuine moments of the characters are what makes these stories so great and personal, and Fate Grand Order manages to carry the entire weight of these moments into animation without holding back anything. And that is also exactly why the entire shitpost tier servant scene still packs just as much of a punch in the gut at the end. Jaguarman, that may look awfully similar to a certain Fujimura taiga from the Fate Stay Night series. I'm sure there's a huge mind-blowing link here and there, like all the Ishtar / Eresh / Rin stuff that I'm not gonna go into. A shitpost to its core, Jaguarman probably has the biggest emotional impact so far in Babylonia for Fujimaru, solely due to because all the people that he has to abandon for the time being, and that is just massive in my opinion. Yeah, Fate Grand Order has amazing fights, but at the end of the day, you remember the personal impact a series has on you, not how elaborate of a fight scene it had. And with Fujimaru, Ritsuka and Mash Kyrieligh's journey, among many other servants that are at the core or at the sidelines of the series, FGO just has that. A personal impact, a personal link to an otherworldly and mystical story that seems too far away otherwise. And that keeps me excited for the next episode every single week. But that brings me to the end of my episode 2 coverage for Fate Grand Order Absolute Demonic Front Babylonia. Oh, that's a mouthful. I'm sorry for not being more in depth since I had to bundle 3 episodes to catch up, and sorry for the past 2 weeks, but that copyright strike along with university stuff had been giving me a major headache. But with this, it sure seems like every single schedule on my channel seems to have gone back on track, so I can't wait for the next surprise life will throw my way to ensure I can't stick to that schedule. If you're wondering where my episode 1 coverage is, as mentioned, it's very likely it will be reinstated on my channel in the next 2-3 days, but until then it's available on my Facebook page as a backup, so until then you can access it there. Weekly Alicization Q&A will arrive next, hopefully tomorrow, before Saturday at the very least, so stay tuned for that and make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon, tap that like button as well if you want more Fate Grand Order coverage. Thank you very much for watching, a huge thanks to all my patrons and channel members as always. Until next time, stay cool.